It's fall, which means open enrollment season is upon us. Keep listening as Brittany and I discuss some key things you should consider as you prepare to enroll in your job's health insurance and other work benefits. Hello, and welcome to the Wealth Minded MD podcast with your money best friends. I'm Dr. Alicia Taylor.
And I'm Dr. Brittany Halford.
And of course, we're here to help you build wealth and make good money decisions so you can create the life you desire with more control over your time. Imagine this. You wake up tomorrow, ready for another busy day in the hospital or clinic, but something's different. You can't move your arm, you can't focus, you can't do your job. What happens to your income then?
That's the part most high income earners in healthcare never think about until it's too late. The truth is, 1 in 7 physicians will use long term disability insurance during their career because of something completely unexpected, a medical diagnosis, an accident, or a mental health condition that takes them out of work.
And here's what makes it scarier. Most of them thought they were covered, but their policies didn't match their specialty, or the coverage amount wasn't enough to actually sustain their lifestyles or protect their families.
That's why both of us made sure we're fully protected. We worked with Pradeep Otto and his team at PK Insurance Group, people we personally trust, to make sure our coverage fits our real lives, not just the brochure version. Leisha got her specialty-specific long-term disability insurance there, and I upgraded my family's term life insurance through them too.
Here's the bottom line. You've worked too hard for too long to lose everything because of one moment you didn't see coming.
If you're not 100% sure your current coverage is enough, reach out to Pradeep and the PKA Insurance Group team today by emailing info@pkinsurance.com. Don't wait until something happens. Protect your income, your future, and your family while you still can. All right, Alicia. Well, I know that you just got back from, it was a cousin's cruise, right? Where you went to Greece. To our listeners, I still have not booked my trip to Greece. Alicia's going to tell us all about her trip and the itinerary so that I can use it and push this needle forward. So, Alicia, tell me, how was Greece, girl? Give us all of the deets.
Greece was fantastic. I'm going to give you maybe a little extra info as you prepare to book your own trip to Greece because we're speaking it into existence. So I will start from the beginning. My family loves to go on vacation. My family loves to travel, which probably is no surprise to you because I love to travel. So it's like, okay, this fits. They're already planning a trip to Hawaii next year and like all of this stuff. So my family loves to travel each year. My father has 7 siblings and they are all still alive and they are all almost retired, if not all of them retired. And so they love to travel and they take a big trip each year. There was some reason why they didn't take the aunts and the uncles. Something happened and they couldn't plan a trip for 2025, but the cousins still wanted to go on vacation. And so they planned this cousins cruise and said, all right, just the quote unquote younger people will go. And they had decided that they wanted to go to Greece. And they looked at different cruise ships, but we had been on cruises before, mainly with Norwegian. So we decided to go with that cruise line. Although I've heard fantastic things about other more luxury cruise lines. I have a close friend actually who went to Greece about a month or two ago, and I think she used Celebrity Cruise Lines. I don't know if that is a cruise line that you've heard of, but she really liked it. It was her honeymoon, and so she wanted something a little bit more luxurious. So she paid like twice as much as I did, but she also had a really luxury experience. And so I wanted to mention this for folks who maybe have gone on cruises before or are apprehensive about cruises, because there are different cruise ship lines that have different levels of luxury, if you will, so you can kind of pick the experience that you want. But anyway, my cousins wanted to go to Greece, and different ships will usually add in other countries as well. Ours went to Greece and Turkey, but my friends, for example, went to Greece, Spain, and maybe a different country. I can't remember what it was. We had been planning this maybe like a year out. When you book with a cruise line, as I'm sure you're aware, they kind of plan everything for you, which is one of the cool things about cruises, right? You don't have to worry about what you're going to eat or where you're going to sleep. Everything's kind of already there. So the only thing that we had to worry about was our flights. And usually with most cruise lines, they will give you an offer where they can say, all right, you can pay us X amount of extra dollars and we'll book your flights for you. My experience with that has not been great because when the cruise line books your flight, they book the cheapest of the cheapest ticket instead of booking you on a direct flight from where you stay in Boston to Greece. They might book you on like 3 or 4 connecting flights. Yeah,
Mm-mm.
exactly. I can see your face right now. I'm saying this to say that even though we went on a cousin's cruise as a group, my boyfriend and I were the only ones that did not elect to have the cruise line book our flights for us. We booked our own flights. And so all of my cousins actually had like 2 or 3 connecting flights to get to Greece. So their travel day was horrendous. But because I booked my own flight, we got direct flights from Atlanta to Greece. I admittedly waited to the last minute to book these flights. And so I actually didn't get some like fantastic flight deal. We have status on Delta. And so we just ended up paying for main cabin flights. And then because we have status on Delta, we were upgraded for free. So we weren't upgraded until first class, but I think we were in Comfort Plus or Premium Select. So it wasn't terrible. And
Mhm.
actually, tidbit, which way too much information. When you are booking flights in like a non first class cabin, we always try to book the seats right behind the cabin before us, if you will. So, like if we're in Premium Select, we'll book the first row of seats and the cabin right below it because usually there's extra leg room. And when you're on these long haul flights, being able to stretch out your legs without having to pay a substantial amount for extra leg room is like a good kind of thing or whatever. Anyway, I'm saying that to say we paid maybe like 1,500 or whatever for round trip flights. However, Brittany, newsflash, Emirates is a fantastic airline and they have some fantastic flight deals to Greece right now. I think they just dropped a bunch of business class seats. And so I know it's like a
Ugh,
year out. And I know you and your life and your kids, you're like, girl, I can't do it. But I'm thinking you might want to have a little combo with Kevin
I
because
need to do it. I need to do it. Okay. All right.
they
Thank you,
just
Leisha.
dropped bunch of really great flight deals.
Wait, I gotta interrupt you. How do you know this? What are you logged into? What type of group are you in? Listserv. How do you know that they just dropped some flies? Give us the inside scoop.
So I'm in all these travel groups, and one of my travel groups, the
Mm.
physician travel group, there's like, I don't know, 20, 30,000 doctors in this group. And so they'll post. So I'll just log into Facebook and like scroll and happen to see a post about, hey, everyone, Emirates just dropped all these flight deals from this city to this city. And they'll put all the dates and all the stuff. And I'm just scrolling. I'm like, okay, Emirates has flight deals. It's not like I'm doing a bunch of research on my own. I am certainly not. That is kind of how I found out about it. So I wanted to give you that tidbit so you can start looking so that you can have an even better flight experience
Yes.
than I did. I mean, we had wonderful flights. The food was great. It was a direct flight, no complaints there. Greece, though, it was fantastic. So our cruise started from Athens, which I think most of the cruises do. And then we went to like 4 different Greek islands. And we also went to 2 cities in Turkey. So we went to Santorini, Crete, Greece, Mykonos, Greece, and Rhodes, Greece. Those are the 4 different Greek islands that we went to. And then we also went to Volos, Greece, which is not a Greek island, but another part of Greece. And then, of course, it started in Athens. So we were in Athens for a little bit too. And then in Turkey, we went to this place called Kasudasi, Turkey, I believe it's pronounced. And we also went to Istanbul, Turkey. So the cruise itself was like 9 or 10 days. And we went to those different places. It was amazing. The really blue water in the Mediterranean Sea, the
Mm.
fantastic food. I had like 5 different Greek gyros. It was so great. We had Greek yogurt there. The views were incredible. Took tons of photos, drank way too much. On the cruise ships, they have food that's free and then they have like specialty restaurants. And because our family has done a good amount of cruises, whenever we book, we get all these like extra add-ins for free. And so we had Wi-Fi for free and we had dinner. We could choose like 2 or 3 specialty restaurants and we had the unlimited drink package and like onboard credit. And so it was fantastic. I ate way too much is what I'm saying. I tried to work out. They had a really great gym actually. And so I did go to the gym a few times to try to not gain 20 pounds on this trip, which I think I was successful at, but I don't know. When I tried to get back in my pants, they were a little snug. So I thought maybe not. The weather was great. I was a little worried about that because we did our cruise late September-ish and I thought, is it going to be cold? It was not. Weather was like low 70s to mid 80s the entire time. And it did not rain once. Just great weather, good food, great fellowship with my family, saw incredible views and sights. Like it was fantastic.
Well, I'm so happy that you actually went because I remember we were discussing this maybe on the podcast or off the podcast of you questioning because there are going to be some other events that were happening here in the US that you might miss. I'm like, no, please do your cousin's cruise. Alicia, I just admire how much you travel and how much time you spend with family. And family is one of those core values for me. And I really enjoy when I spend time with my cousins because I grew up with them, but now I live in Boston and I don't get to see them that frequently. So I'm just thinking about all the shenanigans, all of the fun, the stories that would have been told or you probably shared with your cousin. So I think I'm going to propose that we go on a cousin's cruise. I see your joy. I see the smiles. I see how good of a time you had. And I want some of that. I want the scenic pictures and all of that. So I'm happy that you had a great time. Thank you for the tidbits. I will look at the flights on Emirates and maybe we don't go to Greece on our cousin's cruise. I really like the idea of a cruise because it keeps everybody kind of in the same space. If you have varying incomes, then you can pay for most things up front and kind of budget for it. And you don't have to always pull out your wallet. So I really like that idea. So I'm going to borrow that. I'm going to suggest that to my cousins. We've been going through a lot in our family recently. So I think it's time that we just let loose in our adulthood and enjoy.
Yeah, yeah, you totally should. And if you and your husband end up doing Greece as like a couples trip, that would probably be fantastic too. Santorini, so many people getting married, taking wedding photos or honeymooning. It was like, am I in the wrong place? Here's like me and my 5 girl cousins walking around having a good old time, and everybody else is like coupled up. So Santorini was definitely the honeymoon spot. I really liked Mykonos though. I thought that there was probably a little bit more to do in Mykonos than in Santorini. Mykonos still had good views, but the beach was a little bit more accessible, more restaurants and things to do on the water. And I've talked to a good number of people who have visited different Greek islands. And instead of doing it as a cruise, they've actually stayed on the island, which to me seems like it would be a really cool and romantic experience to share with your husband. And so just wanted to give you that tidbit too, that if you want to do it as a couples trip, it seems like that's what everybody else was doing.
Well, thank you for sharing that. We got to make it happen. We got to make it happen. We work so hard, and I just really love how you are intentional about your travel. So I need to be about mine like Leisha is about hers and just book it. And then change the schedule. Like if I book it for next June, that's more than enough time for me to change my work schedule and for my husband to change his. So I just need to put on the calendar, book these flights. Thank you for the encouragement, girl. Feel free, send any restaurants that you frequented or any spots that you visited so that we can also indulge in that way as well.
As physicians, one of the most important things that we can do is make sure that we secure our income because a lot of our financial plans are contingent on our high doctor income. One of the things that you will need to do is make sure that you get long term disability insurance.
Now, Pradeep and his team at PKA Insurance Group have a reputation for putting people over profits and always doing what's best. Do not hesitate to email PKA Insurance and his team today.
They will help you get the insurance you need with the service you deserve.
Are you ready to negotiate like a boss? Let's be real. Most employees don't negotiate, but their employers expect them to. That means you're literally leaving money, benefits, and flexibility on the table.
But not anymore. Just as our client, after going through the Negotiate Like a Boss Accelerator, she landed a big salary increase, the schedule she actually wanted, and more time to spend with her family and pursue her passion.
You'll get proven scripts and tools to negotiate with clarity and confidence, live hot seat coaching to practice and perfect your pitch, and real time feedback so you're not guessing, you're growing.
Because, like I always say, I work better when I'm paid well. Don't wait. Procrastination is a pricey mistake.
Enroll in Negotiate Like a Boss Accelerator today. Click the link in the show notes. This opportunity will not be around forever. All right. Well, Leisha, it's about that time where we get the emails for open enrollment. We need to fill out our benefits, select what type of health insurance, think about how much we're putting in these FSAs, if we're going to use them, or an HSA, all of the things. And I know you have some tips for us. So please let us know. And Leisha, I'm actually grateful that we're having this conversation because there was a year that I missed my open enrollment and we had no health insurance or anything. Yeah, I was able to fix it. I was able to fix it, people, just in the email. But this is a reminder for everyone that this time is coming. So you just don't want to miss this open enrollment period. And we're going to teach you how to do it successfully.
Well, everybody knows one of the benefits I always take advantage of at my job is vacation time, okay? But there are other work benefits that we need to make sure that we at least look into around this time of the year. Similar to what you said, Brittany, a lot of people may erroneously assume that because you selected your work benefits when you were first hired, that they automatically roll over. And each job may be a little different. My experience at different jobs has been that some benefits roll over and other ones you have to actually select each year. And I don't know why they do this, but usually the time of the year when you select it is late fall. And if you miss this sort of time frame of a few weeks or so, then you're kind of like out of luck. Thankfully, you were able to send an email. I know some folks at my job, Brittany, they're like, no, ma'am, no, sir. You missed open
Mhm.
enrollment. Try again next year. Figure it out. So we want to make sure that people listening to this do not miss open enrollment because this is when you select a lot of your benefits. And the most important one, I think, is health insurance. And so, again, if you miss this open enrollment period, you're kind of missing out on quite a lot. And so, we're going to go through some things that you should maybe think through as you prepare for open enrollment so that you can select maybe the best things for you. The first thing on my list is health insurance. And although we all know that we need some sort of health insurance, this is the time of the year to really reevaluate the kind of health insurance that you select. And there's obviously a million different plans and various different ways that you can get health insurance. But for the majority of Americans, we get it through our job, again, during this period called open enrollment. And one of the biggest questions that we have to ask ourselves is what kind of health insurance plan do we want? And although, again, there are different kinds of nuances in each plan, in my view, Brittany, there are two main types of health insurance plans. There's a regular or comprehensive health plan of varying degrees, and then there's a high deductible health plan of varying degrees. And I think the first question that you have to ask yourself is which type of plan is appropriate for me, right? Do I want to be in the regular, more comprehensive health plan, or do I want to be in a high deductible health plan?
Yeah, this is really important, at least for me, in thinking about tax savings and thinking about how I'm preparing for the future as well, because the high deductible healthcare plan allows for me to have a health savings account, an HSA. And so I always elect for the high deductible healthcare plan, but that year when I missed my open enrollment, they just kind of put me in the default plan. This is what we do. Also, we're fairly healthy, right? We don't have too many healthcare expenses. Usually it's just our annual exams. We got Dr. Dad and Dr. Mom in the building. So we're like, oh, you don't need to go to the doctor for this. Maybe we shouldn't play doctor for our children and ourselves sometimes, but it helps us to at least not utilize the healthcare system so that we don't have to pay such high deductibles for each of the visits. So this is what we elect and will likely continue to elect in future years unless something changes with our health status.
All right. So I usually do not do the high deductible health plan. And I'll talk about why in just a second. But I think the listeners might be okay, well, how do I know if I should choose the high deductible plan versus the regular, more comprehensive plan? And usually my feelings on this are the regular, more comprehensive plan usually allows you to pay less out of pocket if you utilize a lot of healthcare. So if you are somebody who has a medical illness or diagnosis that requires a lot of prescription medicines or frequent doctor visits, if you are someone who does go to the doctor, maybe a lot more than Brittany and her family do, then you might want to consider a regular, more comprehensive plan. Also, if you are somebody who enjoys just having to pay a copay when you go to the doctor and does not want to pay the full price for a visit upfront, then you might want to consider a regular, more comprehensive plan. And let me explain this. So, the way a high deductible plan works is that usually your premium, so the amount that you pay for your health insurance each month, can be quite low. But when you actually do go to the doctor, usually what happens is you have to pay the full costs for all of your health care until you reach a certain point, till you've paid a certain amount out of pocket. And once you paid a certain amount out of pocket, then your insurance will kick in. What that means is like your deductible tends to be quite high. And so you have to kind of, usually the high deductible plan, it's thousands of dollars, right? And so if you go to a doctor's visit, whether it's a specialist or general practitioner or whatever, if you haven't met your deductible, then you might actually have to pay whatever the full cost for that visit is. And unfortunately, I remember going through several different visits where maybe my insurance wasn't coded correctly. And so I had the misfortune of seeing what the full cost of some of those visits were, and they were hundreds of dollars. I remember getting an eye exam and it was like maybe $400. I remember going to the OBGYN doctor and it was like $700. And I remember thinking, I mean, I thought these people were nice, but I don't know about $400 worth or $700 worth for 15 minutes or so. Now, again, different high deductible health plans may do it differently, but from my experience, you usually have to pay the full cost for the health visit upfront. And for me, being a little Frugal, some might say cheap. I just cannot stomach that. I would be like, nope, let me see an itemized list of what I'm paying for. When they order labs, let me see how much the CBC costs. Let me see how much this is. Is this really necessary? Actually, I could get it cheaper on my own. I might be avoiding the doctor, like, just hold this out just a little bit longer. So I know myself, right? I just don't operate very well in that kind of system, shall we say. Also, people who might want to consider a more comprehensive plan like I do are folks who know that they're going to utilize healthcare more in the next year. So maybe you are healthy. Maybe you don't have a lot of medical diagnoses. Maybe you don't really go to a lot of doctor's visits, but you anticipate doing so next year. For instance, maybe you were thinking about getting pregnant and having a baby. And so you know you're going to have some labor and delivery costs. Maybe you are considering freezing your eggs or IVF or whatever. So you know you're going to have some extra costs that way. And so if you are somebody who knows or can anticipate, I'm going to have a big surgery next year or whatever, then maybe you do want to choose that more comprehensive plan. Because if you're someone, again, who utilizes a decent amount of healthcare, you're going to pay less out of pocket overall if you're choosing that more regular comprehensive plan. Alternatively, if you're like Brittany and you're like, yeah, I'm never going to the doctor, I'm pretty healthy, my family is pretty healthy, then maybe you want to consider a high deductible health plan. You will pay a lower premium each month for said plan, and you will have the ultimate benefit of being able to open and contribute to a health savings account. And Brittany, I can't remember if you mentioned this already, but the health savings account is fantastic because it's that one account that's triple tax free. You don't pay taxes on the money as you contribute to it. You don't pay taxes on the money when it's in the account growing over time as it's being invested. And you also do not pay taxes on the money when you take it out of the account if you use it for healthcare expenses. And so the big summary is, if you're someone who utilizes healthcare or plans to utilize healthcare or just super cheap like me and you don't like paying the full cost of things up front, then maybe you might want to consider a regular, more comprehensive plan. Alternatively, if you're someone who doesn't use a lot of healthcare, if you are somebody who doesn't anticipate needing to use more healthcare next year, and you are someone who would like the option of being able to contribute and invest money in a healthcare savings account, then maybe you want to choose the high deductible plan.
Yeah. Another reason why is looking at your benefits. Our employer gives us a contribution to our
Mm.
HSA. I don't remember the exact amount. I think it's like 3 grand for a
Oh,
family.
that is not us. Y'all got good benefits, girl. I can tell you right now, that ain't us. Now, if my employer was giving me 3 grand, we might have to reconsider some things. That is not the case.
Yeah, so it is substantial. And if that happens every single year and we're investing in, we're not using the funds, then that's substantial growth. And so that's kind of where the calculus is. Okay, what are they actually giving me as a contribution and how much will I still have to pay out of pocket? Because then I'm going to be, net even at that point. And again, we have our annual visits in. I had a cold last year. And you're right. Like these visits, it's like you looked in my ears and you listened to my lungs. Like I could have done that myself. Well, I can't look at my own ears, okay? But I could definitely listen to my own lungs and heart. And the visit was like $400. But again, there's a contribution from my employer. So I'll pay the $400 and then just to let this money grow tax free, reap the tax benefits this year. And then when we pull it out in retirement or at any point, I can cash in and get a refund, but I just save the receipts for today's expenses. And then we can cash them out in retirement after that money has had more time to compound and grow from the investments. So I think you should really just look at what you're going to be spending in the next year. And if your employer gives a match, do that calculation to understand what is the break even point, because it might be more valuable to choose a high deductible healthcare plan so that you can get that extra contribution and really maximize and utilize an HSA.
That's a great point, that some employers will give a contribution to an HSA. And so if your employer is like Brittany's, where they're giving you thousands of dollars, then heck yeah, I might really strongly consider it. Another thing, Brittany, that you mentioned that I think is really important to emphasize is that one of the cool things about an HSA rate. So if you decide on that high deductible health plan and you open an HSA and you contribute some and your employer contributes some to that account, first things first is you don't have to leave the money in cash. You can invest it, which allows that money to grow, or at least have the opportunity to grow over time. And so that's really valuable. The other thing is that you have a little bit of flexibility into how you want to reimburse yourself for different healthcare expenses. I know some people, they have an HSA, but if they go to the doctor and they get a $400 bill like you did, Brittany, they basically just pay for that money directly from their HSA account, which is, I mean, how it's supposed to be used. So that's fine. But other people like yourself, Instead of reimbursing yourself immediately, you basically pay the full cost of the doctor's visit out of your own bank account and you let the money in HSA grow and you're just quote unquote saving the receipts. So then you can reimburse yourself for that cost later. Some people might say, well, why would you go through that? And the answer is, well, if you reimburse yourself later, you're giving the money in the HSA account more time to grow. And so if that money is being invested and let's say it's growing on average 10% per year, if you wait 5 years or 10 years to reimburse yourself, maybe you'll have substantially more money in that HSA account. And so you're kind of playing the long game, if you will. Now, obviously, that requires people to have a good amount of disposable income to be able to pay the full cost of the doctor's bill. And again, this is where cheap Leisha comes in because I'm like, I had plans for that. That's a good point is that you have the opportunity to really use the HSA account as another tax advantage investment account, which could be extremely valuable for folks, especially as they are going through their working years. Because the HSA, as we mentioned, when you take out the money and you use it on healthcare, it's tax free. And of course, one of the highest expenses that people have in retirement is healthcare costs. And so having an account like that at your disposal could be really beneficial.
And, the fact that I can save on taxes today and in the future is one of the best perks. So, by using an HSA and say our employer gives us 3 grand towards it and I put 5 grand. So, that means that I get to save 35% of that 5 grand that I've invested in this HSA, which again, more money in my pocket. So, for me, it's win win. But I could understand if you don't want to have that unexpected expense because yes, we are healthy now, but that can change at any point. Like no one has a crystal ball to say, oh yeah, I'm going to get sick in 2 months. We just don't know, right? It also just allows us to be grateful for where we are. And if we needed to use the HSA at any point, if we become sick during this time, then we can always use the HSA at that point. Again, it's like a savings account, like an additional emergency fund that we can use for those healthcare expenses. All right, Leisha, that's a great tip. That's the biggest one. The healthcare insurance, looking at the various plans, I'm going to just be transparent with y'all that I don't look at them that thorough. I know I'm using a high deductible plan. I look at kind of the in network costs. I try to stay in network as much as I can, use the in network pharmacy so that everything is very cheap. So I still try to save money. I'm not going out of network. But to your point, this is a really big decision and you just have to figure out kind of what feels good for you. And I would just encourage you to do some math in the calculations.
It's so funny how different we are because I'm the exact opposite. I'm like meetings with HR individually. I'm like, please send me the guide. I'm like highlighting certain parts and trying to figure out which plan is best, looking at every single benefit and like what happens if I'm in the hospital? How much do I pay if I go to the emergency department? And one of the cool things that I would encourage folks to think about if you are a female listening to this podcast who does not have children or is looking to expand your family is looking at labor and delivery costs, how much you would pay out of pocket. And also if your health insurance has any fertility benefits. I know mine does. And I think it's becoming more common nowadays. Usually there's a lifetime limit, so you can't use that benefit each year. For our insurance, it's like up to $20,000 or $25,000 can be used for fertility treatment. So if you are somebody who has had difficulty having kids or is thinking about expanding your family, if you wanted to freeze your eggs, do IVF, that sort of thing, they will provide some money for that. I did want to mention that I'm starting to see that more and more in different health insurance plans, which I think is fantastic.
All right. So after we got the health insurance down, what's the next thing that we need to make a critical decision on with open enrollment?
If you want to contribute to an FSA account, in other words, a flexible spending account, because if you want to contribute to that, you actually have to put the amount that you want in that FSA account. You have to select how much you want to put in. So whether it's $100, 200, 300 or whatever. Now, usually there is a limit to how much you can put in a flexible spending account, but my point is that during open enrollment is the time in which you select how much you want to contribute. Now, I do want to mention that when it comes to an FSA account, flexible spending account, there are 3 different kinds, which I know makes things super simple for everybody, right? The first kind is a comprehensive flexible spending account. And this comprehensive flexible spending account is open to anybody who has a regular health insurance plan, a regular, more comprehensive health insurance plan. So remember, Brittany and I were just talking about how because she has a high deductible health insurance plan, she has access to an HSA account. Well, anybody who doesn't choose that kind of plan and instead chooses like a regular, more comprehensive plan like I do, we have access to a comprehensive flexible spending account. So the high deductible health insurance gets access to an HSA. The regular comprehensive health insurance plan gets access to an FSA. So I wanted to clarify that, or at least a comprehensive FSA. And that is an account where you can put money in and it'll be pre-tax. So you'll save a little bit of money on taxes for the money that you put in this account. And you can use it for healthcare expenses. You can use it to pay for copays or when you're picking up any medicines or prescriptions at the pharmacy. You can use it when you're buying certain products for your health. If you purchase different health devices, you have different activity trackers and things like that. Usually those are eligible expenses for an FSA. If you want to purchase new glasses or contacts. And so usually people use money in their FSA for this. And again, your question might be, well, why would I use this account when I can just pay directly? And the answer is when you put money in this account, it is shielded from taxes. And so if you were somebody like Brittany and I, where maybe you're in the top tax bracket or near one of the top tax brackets, you can save about 30% by utilizing this money. That's 30% less that you would have to pay in taxes on the money that you contribute into this account. And so during this time is when you can select how much money you want to put into a comprehensive health plan. I do want to mention that for folks like Brittany who have a high deductible plan, which means they don't have access to this comprehensive FSA, they usually might have access to a more limited purpose FSA, which means you can put money in it and use it for any expenses that you might need to spend for the optometry, so the eye doctor or the dentist usually. And so just look into the nuances because you might have access to either a comprehensive FSA or a more limited purpose FSA. But either way, you need to select how much money, if any, you want to contribute to an FSA account. So those are two of the three kinds of FSAs. The third kind of FSA is one that almost everybody has access to, and that is called a dependent care FSA. And a dependent care FSA is money that you put into an account that you can use for expenses that you use for your dependents. And so if you have kids and you're paying for daycare, you can use the money in that account to pay for daycare. If you are taking care of maybe aging parents or aging relatives and they're in a nursing home or assisted living or something like that, you can use the money in this account to pay for that. Now, granted, there are limits. So it's not like you can just put, all the money you spend on childcare into this account and save all the money you want on taxes. There are limits. But I did want to mention this because this may be an account that you want to look into if you are somebody who's paying for either daycare or some sort of assisted living facility for your family members.
Thank you for breaking that down. For us, we use the limited purpose FSA because we have the HSA. I recently went to the dentist and the dentist's like, "Oh, Brittany, you have this very old filling and I think you're going to need a crown." And I said, "Okay, thank you. We're going to just wait until January to schedule." He's like, "Why?" I said, "Because I'm going to build it into my FSA. I'm going to get a tax deduction for this expense because it's going to be about $700 or $800. So what I would encourage you all to do is if you have not gone for your cleaning and your dental checkup, maybe do that now and estimate what those costs will be because sometimes it can be substantial. And if you want it, you can build that into your FSA right now and schedule that appointment for January if you wanted to get a tax deduction and kind of kick that can down the road if you can. One of the things to highlight here is that an FSA is use it or lose it. So you don't want to overfund this account, right? So you want to be extremely thoughtful of, okay, will I need contacts? Will I need other type of medications, things of that nature? And what will you need? Because what you might find is that you're just buying stuff to be buying stuff because you have this money and you don't want to lose it. So we wouldn't throw money in the trash. And that's essentially what you will do if you don't use the money that you place into your FSA. So I typically underfund this account, but I am extremely thoughtful about what do I want to do each year, whether that's purchase new glasses, get some dental work done, etc., and budget those things in. And then for anyone who has a child, the dependent care FSA, and I hope the number increases next year, but it's been $5,000 for a long time.
It's increasing.
It's increasing?
Yeah, by 50%. It's going to be 7,500 for households and 3,750 for those who are single or married filing separately. And
Okay.
so, yeah, you're going to have higher limits next year. So if you're someone who utilizes this, which seems like Brittany does, you're going to be real excited about that.
Yes, yes. I mean, 7,500 is better, right? But it does not cover our childcare expenses. And I'm sure if anyone is taking care of an elderly parent or have another dependent, it does not cover. It's like a drop in the bucket. But I appreciate that they're at least being mindful of how we can get an additional break given how much we spend to care for our loved ones. So definitely that's something to consider and invest in and opt for. All right, Alicia. Well, that's good. FSAs, I like FSAs, get the tax breaks. You just got to make sure you use the money by that time. So now what else should we be thinking about in open enrollment? I know you go through the details. I'm like, okay, I'm going to check this. How much does this cost? Oh, that's not too bad for me. That's how I make my decisions.
Yeah.
What else should we think about?
You should think about enrolling in other kinds of insurance. So we talked about health insurance, but technically speaking, vision and dental are separate types of insurance. So you have to decide if you want to enroll in those. I usually do because they're so cheap. I think my vision insurance is like $1 or $2 a month. My dental insurance might be like $5 a month. And I'm like, look, I probably lose that in my purse as I switch from one purse to another each month. It's so small. And I thought, why not have it? I usually elect for dental and vision insurance as well as health insurance. Other kinds of insurance that you want to make sure that you have reviewed is malpractice insurance, disability insurance, and life insurance. And so when we are talking about malpractice insurance, that obviously is insurance that covers you in case you have a lawsuit at work. So for us as physicians, if a patient or something tries to sue us, our malpractice insurance is what will cover us. And so depending on what kind of job you have, usually if you're employed, your employer will pay your malpractice insurance. The thing that I encourage people to do is to review it around this open enrollment period. And I'm not saying that you need to read all the legalese of your malpractice insurance policy, but I always tell people to ask HR, your human resources department, for a copy of it and you save it. And this is especially important for anybody who's in training and this is their last year in training. So if you're a resident or you're a fellow, this is really important. Believe it or not, when you try to get credentialed at a hospital, they are going to ask you where you worked before. They're going to ask about your training. They're going to ask for a copy of your malpractice insurance policy because they want to know that if you leave your current job, whether you're in training or not, and a patient from that job decides to sue you later, they want to know that you have malpractice insurance that is going to cover you from that work lawsuit. And usually they're going to ask you specific questions. One is like, what is the max amount that your malpractice insurance will pay out? What is the yearly limit that they will pay out? What is the policy number? All of those details. And nobody, of course, has those things memorized. And so, what I encourage people to do is to just ask your human resources department for a copy of it and just save it to your file, save it to your computer so that it's easy to find. I don't know about you, Brittany, but I have an entire folder on my computer that's like medical documents. And it has like my med school diploma, my residency, graduation certificates, my board certifications, all of those things, because I get asked about it all the time. For a while, I would just search my computer and spend hours finding all these documents. And now I just like, okay, let me go to my medical documents folder just send them all of these things. Another reason why I encourage people to ask human resources for a copy of malpractice insurance policy is because it might change from year to year. I remember looking at one of the policies and it was like a yearly policy and it had to renew each year. So I just always wanted to make sure that I had the most updated version of your malpractice insurance policy. Also, if you're somebody who is interested in side gigs and maybe you want to work for us as doctors, if you want to do work at another clinic, work at an urgent care or something on the side, again, those people are going to ask for a copy of your malpractice insurance policy. If you want to do locums, they're going to ask for a copy of your malpractice insurance policy from your other employers. And so just make sure you have a copy of it. So that's number one. Number two is looking at what kind you have. You'll be surprised at the amount of people who do not really know what kind of malpractice insurance policy they have. And this becomes a problem when they try to switch jobs. Although there's different nuances and legalese, the main thing that I tell people is that there's two main types. There's an occurrence policy, which is very comprehensive. And then there's a claims made policy, which is not as comprehensive. Claims made policy is only going to cover you for claims that are made while you work at that job. But if a patient decides to sue you once you leave the job, then it won't cover you. And so you're going to need tail insurance in addition to what you currently have at your job. And so then you got to figure out, does my job cover the tail insurance? Who's paying for the tail insurance? How much does the tail insurance cost? And if you are not aware of this, this is going to be a big surprise to you if you try to leave your job, right? If you only have a claims made policy and your employer doesn't pay for tail coverage and you try to switch jobs, you're going to be required to pay for your own tail coverage. And that might be tens of thousands of dollars that you may not have been expecting. I always tell people, hey, you don't have to know everything about your malpractice insurance, but at least know what kind of policy you have and at least have a copy of the policies so that you can easily pull it up if you need to.
Yes, thank you for that breakdown. This is really important, especially if you want to have private practice or some form of that, just to understand how you're protected. And hopefully you won't never have to use this insurance, just like health insurance, we often have to use. But hopefully you won't have to use malpractice insurance. But this is something that we all, especially as high income earners and professionals, that we must be abreast on. And to your point, if we work in a clinic or a hospital, many of us don't really understand and know the details of the policy. And I remember when I transitioned jobs, I'm like, what? I don't know this number. I don't know the details of this. So unlike Leisha, I was a little less prepared for that question. There's a lot of benefit to reviewing it every year just to understand if there's been any changes, because that helps you to predict your risk and what type of vulnerabilities you might have from your practice. But if you don't want to download it or save it to your computer, I think that's fine. Just make sure that when you need it, you know where to go and your HR department will be where to go. Okay, so that's malpractice insurance. Now, Alicia, I know we all recommend having our own independent disability insurance policy that's long term disability insurance. But what do you think about short term disability, and what is your recommendation for those who get their disability insurance through their employer?
So my main thing is don't leave free money on the table, right? If your employer has a free benefit, sure, sign me up. And so that's the case for a lot of employees who work in healthcare, is that your job will usually give you some sort of free long-term disability insurance. And so I elect for it. Why not? Now, I don't think that that's the only disability insurance you should have. I think you should have your own individual policy in addition to what you get at your employer, for a few reasons, mainly because your employer's disability insurance, it may take several months to kick in. I know at my job, it doesn't kick in until you've been disabled for 6 months. Usually, most people want to get paid before that time. Two, it may be harder to qualify for. Oftentimes, you have more hoops and hurdles to jump through in order to actually get paid a benefit. Three, the benefit that you get from your job may not be enough to cover all of your household expenses. Usually, at most jobs, there is a limit or a cap to how much you can get. I know at my job, Brittany, it's 60% of your salary up to a payout of like $100,000 a year, maybe. And so if you're a physician that is making like two or $300,000, for example, a year, being able to only get $100,000 or $60,000 or whatever from your job won't be enough, right? You'll have to experience a drastic change in your lifestyle or quality of life. And so that's one of the main reasons why I recommend people having their own individual policy to kind of supplement what they get from their employer often. And also because most people nowadays are not staying in a job for 30 years, they're switching jobs. And if you only have disability insurance through your job, then when you switch jobs, you're not going to have that disability insurance anymore. And so just having your own individual policy that is quote unquote portable, where you can take it where you want, even if you switch jobs, is really beneficial. So my advice is sign up for the free long-term disability insurance policy if it is free. If it's not free, just get your own and you can get enough on your own. But if you're like me and Brittany, where the long-term disability insurance offered to you at your job is free, just check it. No harm, no foul. The other thing to consider is short-term disability. Not every job offers this. Mine does. For the first couple years at my job, actually, or first year and a half, I think, we actually had to pay for short-term disability. Now my job has changed this where it is a free benefit for us, but you have to look and see how your job does it. I know a lot of like, if you worked in the education system, usually this is something that they offer. And at many jobs, I have seen this as a way to provide a benefit for maternity leave or paternity leave without actually having an official maternity or paternity leave policy. So for us at our job, through short-term disability, if you have a normal, uncomplicated vaginal birth, then you get, I think, 6 weeks. And if you have a cesarean birth, you get 8 weeks. And if you need more time, then your OBGYN or your physician will fill out the short-term disability paper to extend your leave. But our job benefits, it's kind of based on a sliding scale of how long you've been there. But if you've been there, I know at our job between 2 and 5 years, they will pay you like 12 or 13 weeks at your full salary. And then if you need more, if you're still disabled after that time, then they'll pay you, I think, 50 or 60% of your salary. But if you've been at the job for over 5 years, they'll pay your full salary, I think, for like 4 or 5 months. It's something pretty good. I don't know if your job has short-term disability, but if it does, look into it, see if you have to pay into it or not, and then take a look at what the benefits might be. You might be pleasantly surprised.
It's interesting that you say that. I think that this is something that I also thought about when I was planning kind of my maternity leave for KJ, and pregnancy was not one of those things that was included for the short term disability. So I couldn't use that resource. So definitely discuss this with your HR person. I took a longer leave with KJ than I did with Brooke. So it was more salient, but sometimes there are also kind of state programs that you can apply for that would give you a little bit of money. It's not a lot of money, but again, it's free money. So why not? You know, as we're conceptualizing our disability insurance, which I think is just so important that you understand how long it's going to take and kind of those caps, especially for your long term, if you can do other things, then how much will they pay? There are some conditions that they will only pay for a limited amount of time. So just to understand some of the nuances of those will be really, really important as you elect for your open enrollment and prepare for 2026. Leisha, life insurance is another thing, and this is coming to head for me. We should do a whole episode on this, girl. With just a couple of life events, life be lifing. So, just with friends who are becoming ill, and then also family who are older and becoming ill, dealing with life insurance, and how much do you have covered through your employer, and what will your costs be, and all that. So, what is your recommendation for those who are electing for life insurance? Sometimes there's like that supplemental life, like in addition to. How do you make those decisions on whether or not you need that supplemental amount, how much they should elect for through their employer?
I'm really glad you brought this up because I have
Mhm.
seen the option for a supplemental policy for disability insurance as well. Your employer pays for one quote unquote basic policy, and then they say, do you want to add on a supplemental long term disability insurance policy? And then your employer will pay for some sort of quote unquote free life insurance. And then they'll say, do you want to enroll in this supplemental life insurance policy as well? So it's almost like you get a free or basic version, and then they're asking you, do you want to elect for an additional coverage? I typically do. And for the most part, I tell people to enroll in the free stuff, right? Why not? But then I typically don't enroll in the supplemental stuff because my general view on these things is it's always better to have an individual policy that's portable, that you can customize with all the features that you want. And also, I think it's a little bit cheaper. For most people, I say, get the free stuff and then get additional policies on your own. So, and that would be my rule here for the life insurance that you get at your job. Enroll in the free stuff, why not? Then also, maybe if you are somebody who needs life insurance, right? If you have dependents, whether it's a spouse or children or elderly family members that depend on you financially, then you want to have some sort of life insurance in place. So if you were to pass away, they have money to help them. My typical rule of thumb is getting most of the life insurance on your own, but checking the box for the free stuff. So not getting the supplemental. The only caveat to that rule, Brittany, is if you are somebody who will not qualify for your own individual policy. And this I find to be the case with people who maybe have been denied for coverage before or have had some sort of health scare where it's hard for them to qualify on their own. For example, I have a friend who was unfortunately diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And so she could not qualify for her own long term disability insurance policy. Insurance companies are not in the charity business, they're in the money making business. And if they think that you have a high likelihood of passing away or becoming disabled more than the average person, they will deny you coverage. Because she had been diagnosed with thyroid cancer, was not going to qualify for her own long term disability insurance policy or her own term life insurance policy. For most of these insurance companies, if you have a diagnosis like cancer, you are not eligible to get your own policy for like 5 or 10 years, depending on the kind of cancer. And so the only way she could get coverage is if she elected into this group plan, because if she selected the group plan, they weren't going to ask her all these medical underwriting questions and she would automatically qualify by virtue of just being employed at the place. And so that's my advice for people is that my general rule of thumb, get the free stuff. Why not? Don't select the supplemental stuff. Just get extra insurance on your own unless you have a medical issue, diagnosis, whatever that prevents you from qualifying for extra coverage on your own. The next question that people might have is, well, how much coverage do I need, right? How do I know if I have enough already? For disability insurance, the general rule of thumb is you need enough coverage to cover 60% of your income. If you make, for instance, $300,000 a year, you want enough coverage so that if you were disabled, you would get $200,000 a year. Make sure that you had enough of a benefit that way. And the rule for life insurance is that generally speaking, you want about 10 to 12 times your income. So if you make $200,000 a year, then you probably want around $2 million in life insurance. I can guarantee your job ain't giving you no $2 million. So you're probably going to have to get some supplemental coverage. I know at my job, they will pay your family 2 times your income up to a cap of $500,000. And so if you think your family might need more than that, then you want to get your own individual life insurance policy.
I'm really happy that we're having this discussion because I think life insurance is one of those things that we all think we need, but oftentimes we don't know how much we need. I know we've had a whole episode on life insurance, and, some people are like, okay, should I get it? I'm single, I have no kids, like I'm healthy. Should I just get the policy now because I'm healthy and the policy is going to be cheap and it can kind of lock me in? And some people wait because they don't have any dependents and their family is very well off. And so their family will not need that income upon their death. So I think it just really depends. You have to appraise your risk, but also understand that this policy is not for you, right? Life insurance is supposed to be left for your beneficiary. So just think, okay, if I am gone, then what will my family need? How many people am I supporting? And use that to kind of make the determination on whether you need an independence policy or your policy through your employer will be sufficient. I think a good question to note, and this is something that I need to do, is like, what does your family need to do in order to get that policy? Oftentimes people are like, oh, I know that there's a life insurance policy somewhere because they worked, but they don't know where to go and how to access those funds. So I think that that's going to be the most critical piece is having this communication about it. And sometimes we think when we're talking about mortality and morbidity, that means that we're like saying you're going to die tomorrow. Well, we all have a death date and nobody knows when that is, except, the Lord above, in my opinion. And so that's why it's so critical that we kind of just have these conversations. And Alicia, I appreciate that we're using this in the context of open enrollment. So maybe you can use that as an anchor, like, hey, I'm not saying I'm going to die, but I got to enroll for my benefits. So Alicia and Brittany told me to talk about this with you and let's figure this out together. Okay, so that's not it, Leisha. There's so much more. And let's see, like quickly, how can we talk about some of the other things that we need to think about when we're enrolling in these work benefits?
Yeah. So, speaking of life insurance and other kinds of insurance, make sure that you complete the beneficiary information on your work benefits. As you mentioned, Brittany, life insurance is not for you, it's for your family, right? When you pass away, the money is going to your family. And so be sure to tell your job who your family is. This is me talking to me because I had realized a couple of months ago that I never completed the beneficiary paperwork for my work benefits. And at my job, there's like an entire form you have to fill out. Like you have to put down, if you pass away, who do you want to get your life insurance policy? And I think they had space for you to name like 4 people. You could even name a trust if you have all of your assets in a trust. They required, their full names, their social security numbers, their date of birth, their phone numbers, their addresses, their relationship to you. They had additional lines for secondary beneficiaries, right? A lot of people who may not be married, maybe they put their parents as their beneficiary. Well, what happens if your parents pass away? Who is your backup? And so make sure you fill out the beneficiary information not only for your life insurance policies, but also for your work retirement accounts, right? If you pass away, who gets the money in your work retirement account? Do you want it to go into a trust? If so, what's the trust information? Do you want it to go to your spouse? What's your spouse's information? Do you want it to go to your kids? What's your kids' information? You may assume, oh, my job already knows this. Trust me, they do not. And it doesn't necessarily go through your job. These benefits are housed at a different organization or housed at a different firm. Our work retirement account switched to Fidelity this year. And so I actually had to go into my Fidelity account and put all the beneficiary information for my work retirement accounts. This next step, as you're completing open enrollment, is please do not forget to tell your job who your beneficiaries are and fill out those forms as well.
I love that. And I think it's something for us always to consider because things change all the time. It is always good to have to. Okay, so Leisha, unlike you, I don't go through all the details of the health insurance, but one of the things that I do is to see if there's any additional benefits that they've added because the benefits from last year are not always persistent in the next year, or sometimes they change. So I know that my employer has like some wellness benefits. They also have some transportation benefits. You all know that my car is old and I like to take the bus. So I always elect for some of those. But how should we engage and appraise these additional, maybe not as critical, but still important and cost saving benefits that might be offered through our employer?
Yeah, well, I think first is understanding what are the benefits, which ones are free, and which ones cost. Because you said that you have a wellness benefit. I think I do too. And it's really interesting that you bring it up because I haven't been utilizing it. But from what my coworkers have been saying, is like apparently if I pay for a gym membership, I can get that cost reimbursed as part of our wellness benefit. My job also, I think I mentioned this before, has a cell phone benefit. Like if you use your own personal cell phone to do anything at work, they'll give you like $20 a pay period towards it. And so some of these benefits are really nice. I know my boyfriend's job, he has a concierge service, which is really cool. It's like a vacation concierge service. And so they will plan your vacations. You tell them where you want to
Mm.
go and you tell them like some different things about like, oh, I want to spend this much on a hotel, or I'm looking for a hotel in this location, or these are the things I like to do. And they will send you like a 30-page document of like, here are the different hotels. I've organized them by cost. Here are different things that you can do in this city. I can purchase the tickets for you if you'd like. I remember when we went to Tokyo, we wanted to go to not necessarily a club, but we wanted to do like a jazz night. And so they had actually found this really great performer and purchased us tickets there for this jazz night. And it was fantastic. We had chef inspired food and great wine and all of this. And we would have never found that place on our own had it not been for the concierge who like got us the tickets and organized everything. And so that's a free benefit that we have at our job, or at least that my boyfriend has at his job. You mentioned care.com. I know folks who have kids, sometimes different job benefits will subsidize part of the cost if you need a last minute babysitter.
That is a fake benefit. I'm sorry.
Tell us how you really feel.
Hey, you don't want to hear about it. Okay. That is a false benefit. We were talking about that on the playground yesterday, actually.
Wait, why do you think it's a false benefit now that you've just busted the people's bubble?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, people. This is something that you have to go back and understand how it works at your institution because every institution is going to be different. But in my experience, there was a time where both Brooke and KJ had some type of stomach virus. And you have to go through care.com and fill out the sheet to get this emergency care. And they want you to fill out all of these questions on the form. And then when I put that they were vomiting, they're like, oh, well, sorry, we can't provide you care at that time. So I still am expected to go to work. So I hire a different babysitter and go to submit receipts for that. And they denied me. And I'm like, well, your institution, like care.com said that they cannot provide coverage given the medical state of my children. So why will you deny me for me providing my own coverage? So I just think that it was such a headache and they only give you like 15 days and they only cover 60% of the cost. So it's really not a huge benefit. I think if your kid just has a sniffle, maybe if there's a holiday and they're out of school, then that's okay. And it probably works fine. But for me, it was a huge headache that required multiple conversations and for me to escalate in order to get that reimbursement. And I don't know if it's worth the energy. But again, that's at my institution. I think it varies depending on the type of coverage that you need and also the details of your institution.
Thank you for giving us a dose of reality. Okay, not all the free benefits are that helpful, is what I took away from that. But there are some benefits that you have to pay for that could be quite helpful. I remember when I was interviewing for a job at Stanford, they had some really awesome benefits that really made me look again at the job that I was considering at that time. And one of them was the home mortgage program. So they wanted to really decrease attrition and wanted their doctors to stay at Stanford long term. And they had done a lot of research that basically showed if a physician or an employee buys a house in that city, they are much less likely to switch jobs and much less likely to move away. And so they wanted to invest in that. And they knew that, Palo Alto is a very expensive city, a very expensive area in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so they actually had a home mortgage program where if you purchased a home, they would pay like, I think 10% of the cost of your mortgage. And you didn't have to pay them back until you sold the home. And so it was like these really generous terms. They would give you up to, I think, $500,000 or something crazy like that. And so look into these programs. Maybe about 5 or 10 years ago, I was at an academic conference at Duke University and they were trying to recruit more physicians. And I had a very similar program as well. And so this isn't just a one institution thing. Several different institutions have had this program in the past. Whether they still have it, I'm not quite sure, but this is something to look into. Another thing that different institutions have had is tuition assistance for yourself. If you are somebody who is looking to get another degree, they might be able to subsidize part of the cost. I actually have one of the colleagues who works with me. I forget her exact role. I think she works on like benefits or something, but she actually has decided to go back to school to become a respiratory therapist. And she said, yeah, our job will subsidize the cost of her tuition. And so I think some jobs will do that as well. Now, me, I have zero interest in getting another degree. Okay. I'm all schooled out. But if you are different from me and are interested in getting an MBA or an MPH or something like that, look in to see if your job will subsidize part of the cost. The other related benefit to that is some of these jobs, especially if you work at like an academic center, might subsidize the cost of your kids' college. I know at Duke University, if you work there, I don't remember how long you have to work there, but they will pay, I think, up to 75% of the cost of your kids to go to college at any college in the States, as long as the cost isn't more expensive than Duke. Duke's pretty expensive. And so this is a huge benefit that a lot of people really enjoyed. And it was something that made them stay put. And so the last thing, I think I'd mentioned this before on a prior episode, is like these law packages. I think it's like $20 a month, but you can pay. And if you need a lawyer to fight a traffic ticket for you or to fight a civil case for you, or you want a lawyer to help you set up a living will or a trust fund or something like that, you can enroll in these law packages and get access to lawyers who can help you do that. And so these are some of the other really cool benefits that I would encourage you to look into at your job during this open enrollment period.
Alicia, I really love the law package. I haven't engaged in that myself because we used a different attorney to do our estate planning, but I've seen all too often that physicians, we don't plan for the future. We don't have these discussions. And there are many colleagues that I have whose children are, in their teenage years, they don't have an estate plan. So this is something, if this is offered, then let's use the benefit. Let's use the discount so that you can do what you need to do, okay, to protect yourself and your family. Another benefit that we have is meeting with a financial advisor, and this is included in the package. Now, we have other episodes of like how to engage with financial advisors and how to really engage them successfully. But this was really imperative for me just to kind of pick their brain to have another set of eyes on our portfolio. I picked up a couple of tips. Again, I didn't have to pay them anything. It's just like, okay, hey, this is what I'm doing. How am I set up for retirement? Give me your input. And I found that conversation to be very valuable, if not only affirming that we were on the right track. So I think doing a thorough review of your benefits package is very helpful for you to just plan your next step. We want you to be financially responsible, make wealth minded decisions, and having the appropriate insurance, taking advantage of these benefits to offset the cost, add value to your life, and will help you to prepare for some of those unexpected things. So I think that this has been a fruitful conversation, some things that I need to put on my to-do list as I approach open enrollment this year in order to avoid missing the date. So don't miss the date, y'all. Don't miss the date. Put it on your calendar. Go check your emails now and put it on your calendar to get done and do it early. All right, Leisha, should we move on and talk about some fun money?
Sure, why not? Why not?
All right, so I'm going to let you go first. What are you spending your money on?
Well, the question should be, what did I spend my money on? Or what didn't I spend my money on when I was on this cousin's cruise? Okay. I left Greece and said, oh, I got to go back to work. Even if I don't want to go back to work, my wallet has said and my bank account has said, Leisha, you need to go back to work because I spent way too much money there. Even though I had paid for the cruise up front and the flight up front, I typically will do some shopping when I'm overseas. My friends know I will usually splurge and buy a luxury bag or so when I'm out of the country so that I can attach the purchase to an experience. Also, it's tend to be a lot cheaper overseas. You don't have to pay the taxes and the fees. Things are a lot cheaper. And so my cousins and I, we ended up going to the Louis Vuitton store. They treated us very nicely. And you can tell we were buying too much because they offered us free champagne and said, do you want more? And I thought, I got to get out of the store. I had some fun with my cousins buying a few luxury items. And so that is something fun that I did with money. And now I need to be saving it.
Girl, can I borrow a bag? Can I just borrow a bag? Okay. We're going to set up a new business called Borrow a Bag from Leisha because every time we ask about your fun money after you've traveled, we're hearing about other bags. I'm serious on that. I borrow clothes all the time. Let me borrow a bag, girl. Well, I'm excited for you. I can't wait to see them. And you'll just have to let me know how they feel and how you organize your life in the bag and, how frequently you're actually using them. I traded in my purses a long time for diaper bags. And now since my kids are bigger and they can carry like their own snacks in a book bag and their own little toys, Brooke doesn't really carry toys. She mostly carries like lip gloss and stuff like that. But KJ, he loves his toys. Then I can start to carry a bag again with my items instead of a diaper bag. So I will be in the market, girl, and I'm coming to look in your closet. Well, as you're discussing Cousin's Cruise, I am purchasing tickets to go to my cousin's wedding. I am very excited because I haven't been to a wedding in a very long time. So this will be an opportunity for me to leave the kids at home, which I was a little disappointed because I'm like, oh, we're not going to be able to have children at this wedding. I think kids have a really great time, but I understand the bride and groom, they have a certain feel. We didn't want kids at our wedding either. So I'll leave my kids with their cousins. So we're just going to hire a babysitter for all of the young kids. And then me and my cousins will go and celebrate their nuptials. So I'm really, really excited for just the opportunity to have fun, to let loose, and to be able to celebrate love and longevity, hopefully in my hometown. So,
Oh, that sounds fun. Take some photos. Seems like it's going to be a great time. All right. Hopefully, you got something out of this episode today and you are now better prepared than maybe you once were for open enrollment at your job. If you have any questions, feel free to email them to us. Until then, we will see you again next week. Bye bye.
One of the most important things you can do is ensure you have long term disability insurance. Long term disability insurance secures your income if the unexpected happens and you are unable to work due to medical illness, chronic conditions, or an accident.
Unfortunately, all insurance agents aren't created equal. Some of them are so focused on making a sale that they fail to reveal certain necessary information, tell you about discounts available, or clearly explain the process. Prati Botto and his team at PKA Insurance Group are different. They have a reputation of putting people over profits and always doing what's best.
If you need life insurance or disability insurance, reach out to Pradeep and his team today. They will help you get the insurance you need with the service you deserve.
Hello, everybody. It's me, Brooke. I'm recording a little disclaimer for my mommy, Dr. Brittany Halford, and her friend, Dr. Lisa Taylor. Just so you know, they're not financial advisors, tax professionals, lawyers, or financial planners. Everything you hear is for education and entertainment. It's not strict financial advice, you know? So use your best judgment, chat with a tax professional, and all those other people that you need to talk to. Thanks for tuning in today. Keep cruising on your journey to wealth and wellness. Bye-bye.